All right, let's get into it. We all love a good plan, right? But what happens when that perfect, beautiful plan of yours decides to write its own super dramatic plot twist? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today, the fine art of project monitoring and controlling.
I mean, really, think about it for a second. You've mapped everything out, it's color-coded, it's a work of art. And then, day one hits and boom, chaos just decides to show up. See, projects don't usually fail when you're planning them. They go completely off the rails during the execution, when nobody's watching the tracks.
And this picture right here just says it all. Over on the left, you've got our gorgeous, pristine plan, a perfect straight line to success. And on the right, welp, that's reality. It's a chaotic scribble of unexpected problems, sudden delays, and all sorts of surprises. So the real question is, how do you manage that scribble?
And that's where this comes in, monitoring and controlling. This is the phase of the project where you basically become a detective. You're constantly on the case, tracking what's actually happening, comparing that messy reality back to your nice, clean plan, and then, making the right moves to get things back on course. Or, hey, to put it a little more simply, you're pretty much babysitting your project. Because, let's be honest, if you turn your back for even a second, it is absolutely going to find a way to get into some kind of trouble. So how do we actually do this babysitting? What are our tools? First up, we've got the big one, the project's ultimate truth detector, a little something called earned value management. So by the book, EVM is a technique that measures your project's performance by looking at three key things all at once: your scope, your schedule, and your cost. It gives you the whole integrated picture.
But here's the secret sauce, the real reason we use it. EVM cuts right through all the wishful thinking. It tells you if you are actually on track or if you just feel like you are. It's the ultimate reality check. So how does it actually do that? Well, it uses three key numbers.
First, you've got planned value, or PV. This is the dream, right? This is the value of the work you were supposed to have finished by this point in time. This is you at the beginning of the project, full of coffee and confidence.
And then reality hits. This is earned value, or EV. This is the cold, hard number representing the value of the work you have actually gotten done. And yeah, as you can see, sometimes reality has other plans. And wrapping it all up, you have the actual cost, or AC. This is the bill, plain and simple. It's how much money, time, and energy you literally burned to get that 50% of the work completed. And when you put these three together, oh man, they tell a story. And sometimes that story feels a lot like a slice of life anime. Let's take Horimiya, for example. Your planned value was so simple. The plan is we're just going to be friends. Easy. But the earned value, you're already getting close. And the actual cost, a whole lot of time and emotions invested. So what happened? You're way ahead of schedule on the feelings front, and your emotional budget is completely blown. The plan was one thing, but the outcome is a whole different story. And that whole story vibe, it leads us perfectly into our next tool for keeping our project's narrative on track. Let's talk about milestones. They're basically the key checkpoints in any good relationship. Project. Milestones are those huge moments that prove you're actually getting somewhere. It's not about just being busy, it's about hitting those major targets. So in our Horimiya project, you have the first meeting, check. Then the big secret reveal, check. You hit the point where you're becoming comfortable, check. And finally, bam, emotional connection unlocked. Each one is a clear sign that you've leveled up. Which really just goes to show you every relationship is kind of like a project, and it comes with its own set of critical milestones. And you know what? Tracking them is just as important as tracking your budget. But hey, every good story needs a plot twist. And in project management, that twist is the epic battle between a plans change and its sneaky evil twin, scope creep. Okay, so these two might look the same from a distance, but trust me, they are from different planets. A change request is formal, it's planned, it's approved by everybody. It's a conscious choice to change the story. But scope creep, that's the insidious, uncontrolled addition of work that nobody ever signed off on. It is the silent killer of projects everywhere. So let me paint you a picture. Imagine the project starts out super simple. The goal is clear. Let's draw a simple cat. Easy, right? Totally manageable. But then someone says, hey, could we maybe add some wings? And another person chimes in, ooh, and what about scales? That would be cool. And before you even know what's happening, your cute little cat project is now a fire-breathing dragon wearing a top hat. That, right there, is scope creep.
And you see this in our anime story too, right? The original scope was, let's just have a normal school life. But then scope creep hits, and suddenly everyone's thinking, wait, are there feelings involved now? The whole project just shifted from a chill slice of life to a full-on romance. And I can promise you, nobody filled out a change request form for that.
So, when things have clearly gone this far off the rails, it is time for that one conversation nobody ever wants to have. The we need to talk of project management. It is time for a project audit. See, a project audit is just a formal review to figure out what is really going on. It's when you finally take a step back and you ask those tough questions. Like, okay, why are we spending so much time on this one feature? Or when exactly did this part of the project become so serious? And the big one, was any of this actually planned?
At the end of the day, an audit is really just that moment of clarity where someone finally stops, looks around at the chaos, and has the guts to ask, wait a second, how on earth did we get here? How did all of this happen? It's a super critical tool for understanding your project's wild journey.
So let's wrap all that up in a super fast summary. EVM, that's how you check your performance. Milestones, those are your key checkpoints. A change request is a good, planned change. Scope creep is a bad, uncontrolled change. And an audit, that's the full review to figure out what went right and what went a little bit sideways. And that really brings us to the big lesson here. The one thing you should walk away with. Monitoring and controlling your project is, well, it's everything. Because if you don't control your project, you can be sure of one thing. It will get a mind of its own, and it will write its very own, very dramatic, and probably very expensive love story.